By the time 1930 rolled around, 26% of employed women were married, and by 1950, that number had reached 46%. These women stepped into wartime industrial jobs as many of their husbands went off to war. From 1939 to 1949, roughly 7 million women entered the workforce. As the war ended, you saw more and more women, both married and single, remain in the workplace. By the 1940s through the 1950s, women held positions in the health industry, academia, and many other careers that had traditionally been a male dominated job. Women had proven to be a very reliable source for numerous industries, and as World War II ended, the number of women in the workplace continued to steadily climb. Although women were relied on during this time, they were paid less for their work than men that they worked right beside of as they came back from war. As we move into the 60s and 70s, specifically in the US, you started to see several key legislation for women in the workforce around pay. In 1963, the Equal Pay Act prohibited wage discrimination. In 1964, the Civil Rights Acts prohibited employment discrimination based on sex, color, religion, and nationality. And then in 1978, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act banned discrimination against pregnant women. The 60s in the US brought about childcare development as well. The Department of Labor set up childcare specifically for children of the DOL employees. We move into the 80s, we start seeing legislation that provided job training to disadvantaged low-income young women. The Women in Apprenticeship and Non-Traditional Occupations Act is a prime example of this. Additional key legislations included Family and Medical Leave Act. And as we reach the end of the 20th century, a lot of work had been done to help working women in both the workplace and with their responsibilities as mothers. So now that we have looked into the past, we're going to now take a look at the present. So Mashiat, over to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Hello, I'm Mashiat. I'm currently working at Square Textiles PLC Bangladesh. And as Ashley have mentioned about the past, and now I'll be going through the present scenario of the women that we have in our workplace. So in my presentation, I will be exploring the present landscape for women in the workforce, and then some of the reasons which are influencing the change. And most importantly, we'll take a close look at the challenges that women still face today as they have strived for equality in the workplace. So going with the first one, the present scenario. Currently, 47.7% of the global workforce is made up of women. This showcases their significant presence in almost every sector. Though the leadership roles remain surprisingly low, but we'll get onto that later. 50.2% of the college-educated workforce are women, meaning women are better educated than in the past. And interestingly, about 75% of self-employed women report loving their job, reflecting the growing trend of women taking control of their careers through entrepreneurship and self-employment. However, 48% of women occupied entry-level jobs, which is still, I believe, way better situation than previously because more and more women are entering workforce, but this large number shows that we are still facing barriers to go in the higher positions within the organization. Now, let's explore some of the key reasons that may have influenced women growing participation in the workforce. The first one, I believe, is one of the most important. This is education. education has been a game changer for women, with more women pursuing higher education than before. Doors to greater employment opportunities and career advancement have opened, and women are better equipped to enter fields which were like traditionally dominated by men, and making significant strides in sectors such as business, technology, and healthcare. Then the role of technology is has been revolutionary. It's not just the tool that we use, but how the work itself has restructured, especially during the COVID time. All of us have more or less experience with remotely working. This remote work and flexible schedule has been particularly beneficial for women, which have allowed them to make a balance between personal responsibilities while maintaining their professional ambition. And this has enabled more women to stay within the workforce, especially uh, the working mothers. Then comes the supportive policies. And by policies, I mean promoting gender equality has been instrumental in boosting women's participation. Then parental leave, childcare support, and equal pay initiatives have created a more inclusive environment for women. Companies and governments have adopting these policies have made it easier for women to remain in or like re-enter the workforce after the events such as childbirth. And last but not the least, this is, I believe, very important for developing countries like Bangladesh. Economical, excuse me, economical need has played a big role. Today, many households relied on dual income to meet financial demands and to improve their standard of living. This necessity has uh, um, driven women to join in the workforce not just as a choice, but as a particular requirement for the sustainability of their families. So, despite the progress, we know that the path to true equality remains unfinished. Today, still, women continue to face a range of challenges that limit their full potential in the workplace. And I have tried listing to speak about a few of them. The first one would be sexual harassment. Unfortunately, sexual harassment still remains a significant issue despite the increased awareness and workplace policies. Many women still face inappropriate behavior, creating an uncomfortable and sometimes hostile environment that affects their productivity, confidence, and in some cases, maybe even career growth. Uh, then comes pay gap. There is still a 20% gender pay gap in many industries, meaning women are paid less than men for the same roles. So if you are given same effort, if you are giving same effort in a job, and compared to a male colleague will be paid, they will be making 20% less. And this discrimination not only limits the financial independence, but also send a message that our work is undervalued. Then comes unconscious bias. 42% women report experiencing discrimination at work solely because of their gender, and 20% often are being mistaken for junior employees. Well, we do have a lot of entry-level employees who are working as women who are working as entry-level employees, but even if you're not, you'll be mistaken just because of your gender. And this actually happened to me. These biases, whether intentional or not, hold women back, preventing them from being recognized for their true potential and contributions. And then comes pregnancy. I believe motherhood is one of the most important and wonderful experience a woman can have. But 61% of women believe that motherhood disrupts their career progression. While many of them face challenges when returning to work after maternity leave, and developing countries like Bangladesh, we have very few companies that actually believe and implement the maternity leave concept within the company. Luckily, my company is one of those few companies, but still we have a long way to go. Then next comes the lack of role models. As I've already mentioned before, we have a lot of entry-level working women, but while only 27.1% of the working women are working as a manager or leader. So there is a significant gap in female role models in the leadership positions. This lack of representation can discourage women from aspiring to senior roles and reinforces the barrier to break the glass ceiling. And last but not the least, limited opportunity, and this can be in certain fields, in certain sectors such as technology. Progress has been extremely low. For instance, over the past 20 years, the number of women in software engineering roles has increased only by 2%. This is still an increase, but significantly low. And this highlights the limited opportunity and persistent barriers for women entering the advancing in the male-dominating industries. So I have just put those stats out there. So if anyone want to have a look, you can. And now I'll be handing over to Abigail. Thank you.
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right, it's good to see everyone. Thank you, Mashiat. So I think Mashiat and Ashley did a phenomenal job of covering the past of our workplace and how we got to where we are now and what is going on right now as well. So great, or I guess I should say, I will be covering the future and how to continue to foster a diverse future on what we have built so far. Great progress has been made in recent years in promoting and creating the need for equity in the workplace, but it's not a one-time quick fix. As women, we bring a very unique perspective and strengths to our organizations that enhance the operations, and these contributions also often go unnoticed or they're underappreciated. So the question I'm going to be answering is, how do we make the workplace more equitable? So I'm going to expand on the challenges that Mashiat just showed to y'all, and she mentioned during her presentation. And I think these 6 challenges are all very pertinent to where we are at right now in the workplace. So the one topic that is probably most discussed right now would be the safety and inclusivity. It's a topic that we're all familiar with, and one of the biggest factors of it would be sexual harassment. So 79% of sexual harassment victims are women, and it's something that needs to be addressed and not taken lightly by employers. So to do this, employers can demonstrate zero tolerance for harassment and bullying to help create a safe and inclusive work environment. Actually, here at PCCA, we recently underwent harassment training in the company, and it was pretty eye-opening to see the different shapes and forms that harassment can take. So trainings such as this are great to create awareness of people's safety and discomfort. In addition to those trainings, we also need to provide resources to employees and females in particular to make sure that they feel confident should some type of incident ever happen to them, and that they can report it and that those reports will be taken seriously. As a good portion of incidents that occur aren't typically reported. And so we need confidence in our employers that if we report something, that it will be taken seriously. The next one that is something we're all also very familiar with is the age-old pay gap. So I read a statistics the other day that the median hourly full-time employee in 2022, men versus women, men made 8.3% more than what women did. So the gender pay gap is decreasing, but it's occurring at a very slow rate. One way to address this problem is to conduct regular pay audits. This ensures that employees receive fair compensation if they've taken on more responsibility in their job roles or their roles have changed in any way. And I'm also fixing to use the word transparency in the next 2 bullet points. And what I'm meaning by that could maybe be taken out of context. When I say transparency, I don't mean just showing completely what each employee makes in the company. I mean it more in a way that we need to establish transparent criteria. So say you're hired for a job role and there's potential vertical movement. There needs to be A, B, and C listed that you have to meet to where you can get promoted. So that's what I mean by transparency. And then also on pay transparency, same thing. If there's not necessarily a way that you can move vertically, maybe there's a way that your pay can increase in your role. And so for the pay to increase, you need to have criteria listed to where you know what you need to do to increase that pay and receive fair compensation. And then I also think it needs to be easier for employees to be able to facilitate their salary negotiations. One way that comes to mind, immediate mind, and should be done at the bare minimum is annual reviews. I mean, you should try to promote an open door policy within your company, but having annual reviews at least gives employees that one time that they know each year that they can go and discuss whatever's on their mind where their job role is concerned. And some of that would be negotiating your salary. And then the last one on how to help bridge that pay gap is to provide employees with career development opportunities. If you do manage employees, provide them with these opportunities. But if you are an employee, you need to seek out these career development opportunities. You might not be able to attend everything you want to, but it never hurts to ask. And depending on what these opportunities are, you could potentially have added leverage when negotiating your salary. So work-life balance was actually something that was recently discussed with some peers in the past couple of weeks. And we were talking about how it has improved drastically compared to recent decades, but there's still work that can be done to make it a little bit better and more flexible. Having a busy work life is difficult for anyone, but it can be particularly difficult for women who juggle multiple roles. So how do we navigate a work-life balance? I think first and foremost, the most important thing is that we need to embrace a family-friendly culture that helps women navigate and have a fulfilling work-life balance. It's been mentioned a couple of times that right at this point, women are the most educated that we've ever been. And so we are capable of doing these jobs, but oftentimes we're held back because there's not a good balance between work and family. So to take care of this, benefits or policies can be enacted that help women in the workforce achieve this balance. It can take multiple forms, but the ones that immediately come to my mind are paid parental leave whenever you're having a child or looking to adopt a child. Providing childcare support also could be considered, because I know there's a lot of companies out there that don't actually have a written parental leave policy. And so implementing a policy like that can help bridge that gap as well. And then another one that has been touched on too is that we need to prevent discrimination whenever women do have children. I know laws have been enacted to do that, but a lot of times there are biases that we have to overcome, or women still come back and they are treated differently after they have a child or have to take leave to take care of their family. And then on a different approach to this is to also provide flexible working arrangements, which can range from working remotely, which COVID showed us that a lot of us can work remotely and still get our jobs done, or maybe even offering flexible working hours. Like I mentioned when I started talking about this, women have a lot of roles to juggle. And so some of that could be taking your kids to school or having to pick them up. And so allowing flexibility when they actually are working would help increase efficiency in the hours that they are working without those distractions. And then also, if flexible working arrangements were allowed, maybe implementing some trainings on time management and stress reduction. If those flexible hours are allowed, employees need to know how to maximize their efficiency in their job role. And then this one we're going to talk about is called overcoming biases. And this particular challenge, in my opinion, could be presentation within itself, because there is a lot to uncover under this topic. But naturally, as humans, we all have some type of bias within us. It's human nature. We can't help it, but we have to accept that these blind spots are going to be a part of us. And so to name a few of these biases, there's a wide range, but some that just come to my mind right now are gender bias or confirmation bias, similarity biases. And so I encourage everyone to do a little research to better understand those, to recognize those biases, and then to help you identify your biases, which will then help you in the workplace to treat everyone more equal and put everyone on a level playing field. So implementing bias training for hiring managers will help with that. And then also utilizing blind recruitment techniques can help as well to make sure that you are getting the best possible candidate without any of your biases taking over on that. And then another one useful thing to have is to capture data to better understand our culture, or to understand culture and inform policies. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I actually found out that our human resource department does collect data on this. And we recently did a cultural study as well to help us implement some new policies. And the data that they collected helped our leadership team create new policies to help the betterment of the company. And it really has helped level the playing field. But as with anything, we do need to be open to changing these policies when necessary, and data collected can also help with that. So this little cartoon, it made me laugh whenever I ran across it the other day. I was jokingly talking with a coworker one day, and he told me, he was like, hey, he's like, you need to stop being aggressive. And I was like, and immediately I responded, I was like, I'm not being aggressive. I'm just being assertive.